Hello and welcome back to the another episode of the Hindu News Analysis. Well, the date is 1st August 2025 and in this video we are going to discuss some important articles which are very much relevant for your preparation. But before we will start our discussion, I would like to give the brief introduction about the initiative which we had started from 2nd June so that if you are new to our channel you will get more connected with us. Basically, from 2nd June, we started an initiative here by the name Target IAS 2026. Under this initiative, what we had promised you that every day we will upload two videos, one in the morning or afternoon session and the another in the evening session. And what are these videos about? In the morning session, which is this video, we will discuss your current affairs, we will take care of your current affairs. In a way, we will discuss the most important articles which are in news daily, and we will try to relate these articles with respect to your prelims preparation. If the articles are relevant for that, we will try to relate these articles with respect to your mains preparation if they are relevant with respect to that, and we will try to frame some possible prelims as well as mains questions if the article demands so that it will give the idea how important these news articles are and how questions can be asked from these articles. This is what we are going to do in this video, and this is what the first video is about. And in the evening session we upload another video where we will discuss your static syllabus. And in this part we had already discussed the Indian polity. Whatever is required to cover in the Indian polity, we had covered that. We had uploaded 30 lectures of Indian polity, and we had tried to discuss every aspect of it. And currently what we are doing, we are discussing the governance, and in this we had already discussed 6 lectures, and today we are going to upload the 7th lecture. So if you want to be the part of it, please do subscribe the channel, do share it with your friends. And also here in the static part we had promised you one thing, that by the month of January 2026 most probably we will end your full syllabus. We will cover your full syllabus, whatever would be required for you to clear the exam. We will cover that, but the exception is that we are not going to cover your optional subjects. This is the only exception here. And also one more thing, as we are delivering these lectures, at the same time we are preparing notes for you. You guys, we are preparing notes for you, and these notes are very much different from the conventional ones because these notes would contain the prelims as well as mains questions with respect to each topic, if the topic is relevant for prelims and if the topic is relevant for mains, so the mains questions. So if you want to get access to these notes, what you would have to do, just mail us. You have to mail us and you will be told to pay 200 rupees per subject. This is the only fee which you can give us. This is the only revenue which we can generate so far through our initiative. If you want to be the part of it, it is totally your discretion if you want to get access to these notes. Trust me, I can guarantee you would find them very different. They are written very elaboratively. They are discussed in a very simple language, and it would be easy for everyone to understand these notes and gain the good marks in the exam. If you want to get access, it is your discretion. And rest, here is this initiative. If you want to be the part of it, please be it. Let us lead you in your journey. We are providing this information totally free here. So please get the benefit of it. Do subscribe it. Do share it with your friends so that they may also get benefited from this initiative. And also please do write in the comments what do you feel about the video, what else should we bring for you. Eventually this is about you. This whole initiative, the hard work we put in, it is for you guys. Do write in the comments what else should we bring for you. Is there anything we need to change in our teaching style? We will definitely try to implement that. With this, let us start our discussion. First, let me rub the board here. As here you can see this screen. On the screen, the article is about the nudges from the court, silence from the commission. What is this article about? It is again about the electoral rolls revision which is happening with respect to the Bihar elections. The story is now 2 to 3 months old, and the same articles are appearing again and again in the newspapers. First of all, let's recap. Maybe there would be new students who would be watching today, who would be watching first time. So let's recap what we had understood so far with respect to this articles. As the elections of Bihar are coming, first let us see the state of Bihar. The condition, let's try to understand a few important facts about Bihar. Bihar as a state, it has huge out-migrating population. It has huge out-migrating population, plus the education level is not that great. With due respect, the education level is not that great with respect to other states. There is high illiteracy rate, and the people, they are mostly dependent on the labor work, and they tend to migrate to different states. So with respect to this, when there are so many conditions, and when the people are uneducated, then what happens? They lack the documentation, they lack the awareness, and they only possess, according to reports which we once discussed here, that on this platform only, that from 2003 onwards, only 2% of the population have the birth certificate there. And also, with respect to this, if we look at some other datas, approximately there is 8 crore population, voters population, and it is said that approximately 50%, approximately 4 crore or above 4 crore population in Bihar, they lack the essential documents. They lack essential documents. So what is happening right now? This electoral rules revision, it is very important exercise. We have to understand that electoral rules revision, it is very important exercise, and it must be conducted in a very sophisticated manner. The way the electoral rules exercise is conducted, it is usually conducted in two ways. It is conducted time after time, but usually in two ways. What are these two ways? Sometimes it would be conducted summary purposes. There would be the special summary revision, there would be special summary revision, and sometimes it is also essential that there should be the intensive revision, special intensive revision. Why they are conducted? Let's try to understand it. They are conducted because in a state, in a constituency, when there are people living, after some time, there would be many voters who had not attained the age of 18. After some time they may attain the age of 18, so we need to add the new voters. We need to check whether the voters which are in the electoral rolls are the eligible ones. We need to check what is the migration in the state, how many voters had moved out of the state and they are living in different states. We need to check that also. And also we need to check those who had died in these years. So this is very much necessary exercise. But there is no question, if it would have been this special summary revision, then there would have been no question, because it is usually conducted. You will have to submit few, you will have to show that you are living in a particular state, and that would be enough for a citizen, for a domicile of that state. But with respect to Bihar, what the government has tried to do, what the election commission has tried to do, they had brought the special intensive exercise. What are the reasons for that? First reason is that from 2003 onwards, there has been no such special intensive revision. And if we look at the location of the Bihar, it is and the surrounding states, and there are high allegations that in the Bihar there are many illegal migrants from Bangladesh. So definitely, if we look at the election commission's perspective, it is the need of the hour. But how it is done, how it has been done, and if we look at the constitution, what does the constitution say? We have Article 324, that it gives power to the election commission of India to direct, to conduct, and to control the elections, to supervise the elections. So definitely it is under the domain of the election commission of India. Now the question is not with respect to why they are doing this. The question is with respect to how they are doing it, and why this time they have chosen for it. Why it is this time they had chosen for this election, for this intensive revision, and the way they are doing it. If we look at the 2003 intensive revision, at that time the time period was given 30 days something, but the population was different, technology was different, and there was in a way, the trust of the people on the election commission was very different that time. The trust of the people on the government was very different. But this time, if we look at the present scenario in 2025, the population has increased exponentially. And it is not enough time for the, even though the documentation which were required before in 2003, they are different now. As we discussed it in our previous lectures too, that approximately 50%, population from 2003 onwards, most of them, they don't even have the birth certificates. And we know that the education level is very low. The people are mostly dependent on the labor works. They migrate to different states. They don't have enough time to get these get these certificates, get these documents. So the time period given to them to arrange all this is very small. So eventually what they are dependent on, they are dependent on the bureaucrats. These bureaucrats, this article also highlights that there may be the tendency of bias in it. What we had seen in Assam, for example, with respect to the NRC exercise, when it was conducted there, even though the time was granted very huge, but it was alleged that it goes against some minorities there. So with respect, where the issue is also the same. And and the another question which was asked, which is often asked by whom, by the opposition leaders, that even though the Election Commission of India is conducting this exercise, but they in a way indirectly are conducting, they are indirectly checking the citizenship of the people. Is it under the domain of the Election Commission of India? To which we discussed that 100% it is under the domain of Election Commission of India, because there is something called the adult suffrage, universal adult suffrage, where they will have to check whether the person is above the age of 18 or 18 and he is a citizen of India. So there is nothing wrong if Election Commission of India is doing so. But all the questions after all this discussion, all the questions are coming to one point: why this time? Questions right now, why this time? Why this time was chosen? Why only this time period? When the elections are very much near, they would have chosen any other time. Why this arbitrary nature of it? So this question, it went to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court asked this question to the Election Commission of India, and Election Commission of India in a way did not answer that well. So eventually what is going to happen? The Election Commission of India is going to conduct this exercise, and what this article is talking about, it is basically talking about there should be the protest against it, that it should not had happened like that. But eventually this exercise will happen, and the chances are that there are approximately 50% of voters will miss their opportunity to vote. And the Election Commission of India has also highlighted that this is not a citizenship check test, that if anybody is not able to be listed on the electoral rolls, that does not mean they are the citizens. They will be given the time to prove their citizenship whenever it would be required. But this should not be deemed as that they are checking the citizenship of the people. And if anybody will not get on the electoral rolls, that does not mean they lose the citizenship. So this is the whole crux of the article which we are discussing from last few months now. And the questions which are to be asked, a question about the prelims, in the prelims may be asked like this, which I had brought a model question here, that which of the following provisions of the Constitution of India deals with the revision of electoral rolls? A very simple question, and the answer to it is definitely Article 324. And this type of question can be asked, and the question with respect to the mains can be asked why it is under the controversy. What are your opinions with respect to that? So all that, what we had discussed so far, you have to collaborate all it in one good answer. That may be very much helpful for any question. So far we had discussed this topic more than 7 to 8 times, and if you had watched my videos, you should be more than ready to answer such question if any question would be asked with respect to this article. With this, I hope you had understood it. There is no issue with it. Now let's move to the another article. Let's have a look at it. What does this talk about? Now this article is about the transforming the early childhood care and education. This article is basically about the early childhood care and education. If we look at India, especially the private schools, mostly Indian, if we look at the Indian government schools with respect to private schools, who are the students who get admitted in the government schools? They are the children from 6 onwards, and in the private schools the children are between 3 to 6 years. They get admitted into the private schools. So with respect to the early childhood care and education, it is mostly the private schools which are leading in it. These are the private schools which are leading in it. And if we look at the data, about the child development, it is said that it is well established that the most development to the children's brain, it happens between the age group of 3 to 6. It happens between the age group of 0 to 6 years. So huge development happens in this age. And if we look at this time period, the most active part is done by the private schools. And one more thing, if we look at the government schools, they are much focused The government schools are much focused, the education which the government schools give, it give between from 6 onwards, because it is schooling itself starts from the first class, and in the private schools it starts from the nursery, LKG, UKG, and all that stuff, the KGs they have to go through. And what is the whole discussion here? When the children are between the age group of 0 to 6 years, there is the main development, approximately 90% of the brain develops in this time period. And what happens at this time period, there are two important things which a children needs. One, first is proper nutrition and basic education. What should be the language skills and the social skills, they should be taught to them, and also the basic learning, it should be taught to them. We cannot expect things like they will be good in the basic mathematics like addition, division, subtraction, and all that, but at least these things, basic language skills, basic communication skills, basic social skills, how to understand the things, it should be taught to them. And with respect that, the nutrition should also be given, the proper nutrition should also be given to them. But unfortunately, so far what has happened in our government schools, it has not focused on it, even though we have the Anganwadi system here. But these Anganwadi systems are highly burdened with the work. Their focus was, its focus was that it should focus on both the educational aspect of the children, but at the same time what it should also focus on the nutritional aspect. But eventually, when there was huge burden, government schools were not taking part in it. It was only focused on the Anganwadis. They in a way had forgot, they in a way had neglected the educational aspect and had much focused on the nutrition. We had various portion schemes there, we had various schemes which provide this nutrition to the children, but the basic education is not provided in the government schools. And once, with respect to this article, it also highlights that the survey was conducted and the different questions were asked to the parents. Would they recommend, would they, to what schools would they send to their children? Would they prefer Anganwadis? What would they prefer? The answer was that they would prefer the schools which provide the basic education as well as the basic nutrition. So this is what this article in nutshell is talking about, that our primary schools, our government schools, they had not brought up, they had not established this yet. But now the things are changing, especially the article gives the example of what? It gives the example of the UT of Daman and Diu and Nagar Haveli. It gives the Daman and Diu, it gives the example of the Union Territory of Daman and Diu, and it highlights that how it has successfully implemented, that there should be the early education care, early childhood care and education system in their government schools. And also with respect to this, we have the new education policy which has focused on the structural shift. For example, it has given emphasis on the early childhood care and education, admitting children between the 3 to 6 years, reducing burden on the Anganwadis. And also it has allowed it that when the children are accepted in these government schools, it had allowed these Anganwadis to approach to go. It has in a way allowed these Anganwadis to expand their scope. So they have now enough time when their work burden is low. Now they had enough time. They go to the homes of these children. They track what is their development stages and how they are developing in this regard. So the nutshell of this article is that the government schools, they should establish this. It should not. They should also have these primary classes, the LKGs, nurseries, and UKGs, so that the children, where they get the most development stage of the children is from 0 to 6, especially from 3 to 6. It is most development stage, and most things which they learn in their life, it is in this age group. But unfortunately, our government schools are not well versed with that, and the children, they stay at homes and they did not learn much. And only if the government has intervened, in a way they had intervened with respect to the nutritional aspect, but the educational aspect is left alone. So it is prime time for India as a country. We should focus on it and develop our education system. And also with respect to this, the article also highlights the importance of NGOs like Pratham. They should the NGOs like Pratham, they should do their research with respect that, they should do their inspection with respect that, and they should also help in tracking the development of children. So this is what this article talks about. It talks about the transforming early childhood care. Now let's try to make it more simpler let's try to make it more simpler for you guys, so that you will track what was given in this article. Here, let me rewrite it for you guys. First, the education system in India with respect to government schools. It admits students from 6 years onwards, does not focus on the early childhood care and education. Even though there are Anganwadis, but they are highly burdened. So they forgot about the children care, but they are much focused on the nutrition. So if we look at with respect this, if we compare them with the private schools, they had much they had focused on it, they had focused on the early childhood care and the education system. So with this, in this regard, private schools are not accessible to everybody. The economic condition in our country is very different. The private schools are not that accessible for everyone. So people mostly in the rural areas are much dependent on the government schools. So what can government do with respect to that? We can follow the model followed in the Daman and Dui, the Union Territory. We can trace that how they had how they are how they are pioneers of the early childhood care and education in their schools, how they are admitting children from 3 to 6 years in their school, and they are helping in their development. Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Dui, how they are helping in developing such children. So we can also follow that. We can also focus that our government schools can also let these children come into the schools, give them the proper education what is required, give them the play grounds where they can play, where they can establish their social skills, and at the same time provide the best nutrition what is required. So if we look at this, what the new education policy, if we will compare the this discussion with the new education policy, and in a new education policy of 2020, it also emphasizes on it that the school should there should be the structural shift. It should focus on this early childhood and education care of the children, and also it will, because once it would be adopted, it will give much space for the Anganwadis to do their other works. For example, approaching to the homes, how they tracing the children, how they are developing in this regard. So this is what the article is basically talking about. With this, let's move to the another article and let's have a look at it. Well, the article is basically talking about the India-US relationship. India-US relationship, especially from the Trump's second tenure. It was believed by many, especially if I will take myself also, I also believed that once the Trump will come into the office, it would be great for India. It would be great for us, because the relationship what we had in his first term was something very beautiful. So we also believe that once the Trump will again come in the office, the friendship which we had with him would eventually boost the both countries' economies. But always there was one concern with respect to Trump. He always labeled that India is a trade bully in a way. He always said that India has this edge on the edge over USA with respect to India's exports in the USA. So the trade deficit of USA, he did not like it. Trump is not the kind of person who would like the trade deficits. So he always blamed that India in a way is manipulative of the trade tariffs, and that does not go good with the USA. So with respect to this, these were the concerns, but we often thought that everything would be fine. We would be able to conduct a trade deal with the Trump, and eventually both the nations would get benefited from it. So this was the ideal idea. But unfortunately, the Pahalgam attack happens. There were trade talks were going on earlier. The Trump labeled 26% tariff on India, but it was supposed that it was paused till 1st August. For a few months, for 3 months, it was paused till 1st August. So he came up with the 26% tariff, and then it was in a way to arm the nations that they will come on the table and they will start trade negotiations with the Trump. And in the same time period, what happened? This article also discusses how a single man can change the direction of the relationship. The Trump as a personality is very notorious. His personality is very much different. He is the person who indulges in the self-praise. So what happens? The Pahalgam happens. Then we go for the Operation Sindoor. We attack, we destroy the militant sites in Pakistan, and there was a retaliation from them. What happened, that is not the point of discussion right now. But how the Trump interfered in this, and the tweet from the Trump that he was the person behind the ceasefire, and the way Pakistan started to follow his path, and they started to I had a different word for them, but this is not the way we should address it. Pakistan started to boot polish them, and at the same time, they demanded that the USA should be, he should be given the Nobel Prize. But India's approach in this, we had always a different approach. We always believed since Shimla agreement that whenever there would be any relationship crisis between us and Pakistan, we should always try to negotiate that between these two countries. We will not accept the interference from the third party. And these statements, what the Trump was making, it was eventually going to hurt our self-interests, and we did not accept it. And it is not true. The parliament, if you would have seen few sessions of the monsoon session, you would have definitely seen how the government neglected the speech of the Donald Trump, what he is saying right now. So it does not, his personality is different, and definitely if any attack on his personality, he is going to it is going to impact the relationship of the country. So he does not got that attention what he is getting from the Pakistan. So with respect to this, the trade deals were going on, but it seems that they did not go anywhere. And eventually what Trump did, he imposed 25% tariff on India, and at the same time he is not liking the India buying oil from the Russia. He's in a way trying to interfere in the foreign policy of India, which we as a country, we as a sovereign country, had never appreciated. We had never let any outsider to interfere in our foreign policy. So with respect to this, he has also stated that he is going to impose more sanctions on India, more fines, penalties on India if we continue to buy the Russian oil. So in this way, the relationship, it has soared to the highest level from early 2000s. The developments which we had done with respect to the relationship with USA, how they always had supported Pakistan, but from 2001 onwards their approach has also changed till Operation Sindoor. But the diplomatic the diplomatic tussle which started after Operation Sindoor, it in a way has derailed our relationship. Now what is there for India? We as in India, as a nation, we have a developing economy, and we are the fifth largest economy in the world, and we had developed in most of the time since our independence only in the hostilities of USA. So it should not worry us much. The prime time for us is to diverse our markets. There are tariffs imposed by the USA, even though it may impact our steel and iron manufacturing. It may have an impact on our steel and iron manufacturing, but eventually we will come through this phase. We have developed in these hostilities. We need to diversify our markets, and at the same time, our pharmacy, our pharmaceutical industry, it is very huge, and its impact would also be felt in the USA, because they are very much dependent on the cheaper medicines, which we are on our generic medicines. So it is also going to impact them, and at the same time we cannot go totally 90 degrees against them, 180 degrees against them. We need to have the diplomatic channels. We need to negotiate with them. It is the globalized world right now. We need to work with everybody. We need to make everybody happy. This is the model of the present geopolitics. So at the same time we need to work with them, have a good diplomatic dialogue with them, and at the same time we need to revise our trade rules. We need to diversify our market. So this is what is for India, and this why there are some uncertainties with respect to India US relationship. So with this, this is very much aware to everyone. I hope you had understood the topic. Now let's move to the another article here and see what we had brought. Well, the article is about the ICJ's ruling for rich nations to pay for historical emissions. Well, why this article is in news? Because recently we discussed a day before discussed the news article which talked about the International Court of Justice. It is ruling with respect to the Paris Agreement. What is the story here? We know that the global emissions. If we see right now, who are the countries who are the major contributors of the global emissions, it is mostly developing countries like China and India. But the story is different. It is not, it is not in this century. The globe started. The globe started. We started emitting these global greenhouse gases. It is not in this century. It started. It is not from last 20 or 30 years. The globe has started warming, but it has seen the globe has started warming way back in the mid of the 80th centuries, when there was industrial revolution in the Europe, when USA was developing, and they were adopting the industrialization, and it were these developed countries who had contributed to this global emissions without any limit. There was no supervision, there was no watchdog over them. So with respect to this, eventually there was, they started to claim, after they tried to understand that the impact of the greenhouse gases, they started to blame the developing and underdeveloped countries, that you are warming the globe. It is you who are polluting. So in this response, they always, the developed and developing and underdeveloped countries, they always blamed that, no, it is not us. We are trying to do, we are following your footsteps. What you had done, we are trying to gain the the development which every country deserves. So you had this path, we also will go for this path. You may ask us to go for the alternative energy resources, but it is not, our economy has not developed to that level. We can adopt the alternate energy resources like you had developed. If you want us to adopt the alternate resources, then why don't you fund us for that? You should fund us that. So with respect to this, the Kyoto Protocol came in, and it basically talked about the common but differentiated responsibility, which in a way gave the responsibility to the developed countries, that you had contributed more, you should contribute in the cooling of the environment. So provide funds to the developing countries, and also you should corrupt to the highest levels. And eventually the times moved on. Then came the Paris Agreement, and it talked about various other aspects, but it in a way did not categorically talked about the common but differentiated principles. So eventually these developed countries, they started thinking that the Paris Agreement has negated the common but differentiated principle, so it is not now their duty to contribute to the developing or developed nations. So eventually the case went to the International Court of Justice, and it gave its ruling that this common but differentiated principle, it is kind of a basic structure of the climate change, and it is to be adopted. So with respect to this now the article talks about, now the judgment of the ICJ came in. Is it now binding on these nations? The answer to it is big no. It is just an observation, and it is not binding on these nations. So we should not feel that much happy with respect to that. Now the ICJ has gave this judgment, now it would be binding. No, it is not binding. There are various arrest warrants from these such organizations against many people, but they are not arrested. This world order is not that effective right now, if we will be much honest, but still it can be very much helpful. It can give opportunities to the domestic courts, to the domestic courts in these countries, to keep check on the emissions, and in a way help in reducing these emissions. So this is the crux of this article. Is this decision of ICJ binding on these nations? No, it is not binding on any nation. So with this, let's move to the another article here. Well, the article talks about why the world needs better green technologies. Well, again, the article here talks about the solar panels, the solar energy, which world has adopted since 1950s. World has adopted the solar energies. But one thing with respect to solar energy is that there is least development in it, and the losses are very huge. And if we look at the present scenario, the dependence on the materials required for the solar energy, the world is very much dependent on the China. So with respect to this, to generate this solar energy, we are highly dependent on China, and it is not that efficient. The technology right now which we had adopted with respect to this, it is not that efficient. So definitely there is a need that we should go for the alternate. In this regard, we should go for the alternative energies. For example, we should there has been a research when the gallium was used in certain solar panels. gallium was used in certain solar panels, the efficiency had increased to 74%. So definitely there is need for it. And also we can go for what can be the alternate ways. We can generate energy through the by the help of green hydrogen. It can be the alternative way. But with respect to green hydrogen, we need water, and we need to split this water. How we can split it? This is splitted by the electricity. So where from we can generate this electricity? This is the question. So we can go for the other alternate ways, for example green ammonia or green methanol. And at the same time, if for example we will still focus on the solar panels, for the installation of solar panels you need huge lands, free lands available, and it is not the luxury which is enjoyed by every country. So definitely this article highlights that these are the issues with the solar panels, these are the issue with the solar energy. The efficiency is not great, so we definitely as a world should look for the alternate resources, and we cannot be so much dependent on a single country. So with respect to this, the green ammonia can be the solution, green methanol can be the solution, and the green hydrogen, it can also be the solution. But by which means we can extract hydrogen from H2O? That is the question. What means, how that electricity would be generated? That would be the question. So this is the crux of this article. Now let's move to the last article of today's discussion. Let's see what does it talk about. Well, it is a new research going on. It is a station in Ladakh begins research to simulate life on the Mars. So this is great news. This is actually the the startup from Bengaluru. If you look at the name, and it is proto. This is the proto planet startup from the Bengaluru, in which would be near Sokar Lake, which is established near the Sokar Lake, where they will create the conditions like the outer atmosphere. They will create conditions like Mars in the Ladakh, which is highly deserted area, and it would be very much helpful for the people, astronauts, to which has to visit moon, which have to visit the outer space. So it will create such conditions which would give them the it will create the environment like the outer space, create environment like outer space, and it would be helpful for the training of these astronauts. It will impact, it will give this psychological training to them, what these astronauts require before going to these outer spaces. So this is something great which this company Prototype is doing, Protoplanet is doing. It is the it is the initiative from the it is the initiative from the this is the initiative from the Bengaluru based startup. And then what they had launched the human outer planet exploration. Human outer planet exploration, this is called human outer planet exploration, which they had launched there, and it is acronymed as HOPE. So this is what they had developed in the Ladakh, near the Sokar Lake, and they are going to replicate the conditions of the Mars or the outer space here, and it would be very much helpful for the astronauts to develop to go for the intensive training, and also go for the psychological training. So with this we had completed our today's discussion. I hope you would have liked the video. I hope you would share it with your friends, and I definitely hope you would subscribe the channel. Thank you for staying with me. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.